Some vehicles can come and go while others will hang around. Well, one such notable is right behind me. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, one vehicle that I've followed over the last decade or so is the Nissan Altima. This latest version really up in the ante in the midsize sedan market. If you follow the evolution of any vehicle, you're going to see a lot of changes, hopefully over a decade. And what we see here is a lot different than whence it came. Now, what I remember back decades ago was kind of a weird rear end. Now, even better was a Nissan Sentra. That really even had a bigger evolution. But here on the Altima, it had just a little bit drastic changes over the year. And what it's done is gone from a little bit geekish to a lot more cool. Now, I haven't visited this vehicle in, well, several years, so I like the fact that when I get in this vehicle, it is a lot cooler than I remember. And where it starts is on the profile. Just like every other sedan out there, it's got to at least look cool, especially considering its older sibling, the Maxima, definitely delivers sport. Now, what I like is pretty much the exterior color. I like the fact that we have red, and what you're going to bring to the table here on this particular model is the accents of chrome. Now, this can be overplayed because everywhere you look, it looks like a Mr. T starter kit. Chrome here, chrome there, and they have it borderline on this one. Chrome accent around the windows, a little bit of black insert in between. This is all stereotypical. Now, what a lot of vehicles do is stop there. Well, not here on the Altima. What they do is bring it down to the door handles on this particular model. This is where maybe it gets just a little too blingy, but I like the fact that it kind of combos just fine. One area where they didn't put it I like is as you sweep down. Sometimes they'll put it way down on the lower third down here, but they don't. Otherwise, there's body color all the way around. Nice overall package. With the evolution of any vehicle, the biggest change is going to be on the outside and that stereotypical silhouette. Now, one of the biggest changes is right here on the back. Now, if you remember years ago, it had a weird, awkward rear deck, a little bit angled. Now, they've changed that. This one mimicking a lot of what the competition is doing. Now, one thing that's not really stylized anymore or plain Jane is the back taillights. Now, it used to be just kind of popped on here. Only the people behind you could see it. Now it really sweeps around the fenders. A lot of the competition is doing this. Now, this is not just for fashion sense, but also for safety. Obviously, illuminating the side with the rear tail light is giving you a lot more safety factor. Now, of course, they made a little bit more wow factor with the angle they designed it in. If the back end is stylized, what you're going to expect up front is a lot of wow factor, the good old grill warfare, and that's exactly what Altima delivers, really starting right here on the hood. Now, it may seem somewhat simple, but there's a lot more ridges than the eye first notices. Really, this front center really bulging out, and what's really great behind the wheel, it almost looks like a muscle car because this is really elevated just a bit. Now, of course, it sweeps down to this grille up front. Now, what you're going to see is the chrome continuing around. Really a nice lower section here, black contrast, and a good old Nissan emblem. Now, the headlights, definitely not normal. Now, they're going to be chiseled, almost menacing, really raking into the fender, sweeping down the side. Again, mimicking the back end, no longer plain Jane. This whole front end protruding, menacing down the road. Diving in a little bit closer, one thing you'll notice with the Altima is there's a lot of sculpting going on, really right here, even at the headlight. All under one housing, but you'll notice that it has a fine cutting edge all the way around. Now, there's a lot of things going on in here, headlights and reflectors and a lot of illumination. Now, it really played into, of course, having a lot of vision down the road with illumination, but one thing it really does is make it look really cool. Looking at the midsize sedan market, it really can come down to the numbers. What is the overall dimensions? Because some can truly come in a lot shorter. Now, what you see here is around about 192 inches, wheelbase around about 109. Decent numbers that are really on the higher end of the midsize sedan market. Now, it's going to come in on the inside when it comes to legroom and overall comfort. Now, the width, about 6 feet wide, just under 5 feet tall. Now, ground clearance to be expected, snug in the road, quite low. Now, what you're going to see as for the four corners, sitting on 17-inch wheels. When you look at the exterior of any vehicle, one thing you got to look at is the lines and the curves. Some vehicles deliver it quite well, others miss the mark. Now, what Altima does well is just this midline right here. Now, a lot of vehicles do this, but don't do it well. Now, what I like about here on the Altima is it starts high on the front end, sweeps down just a little bit at the front section of the doors, then angles back up to the back end, giving the impression of movement even when this vehicle is standing still. When you have a sporty exterior like this, you definitely want to look at the power plant and see if it matches. Now you have two options, the as tested 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder engine or the more powerful 3.5 liter V6. Now what this model delivered was around about 182 horses and 180 foot-pounds of torque. As for the more powerful V6, that's going to go upwards of around 270 horses. This vehicle has a lot of safety, especially when you're behind the wheel, but let's point out one here at the back end. Now, one thing you're going to note is there is no backup sensors, but one thing that really helps in general is the backup camera, and I found that it was plenty good here. Didn't really need all the sensors. Now, as for the vehicle getting access, what it had was a smart key system. Now, one thing to learn is really the amount of buttons on here. Instead of the unlock button being at the top or vice versa, it has actually a remote starter here. Then it's going to have the lock, the unlock, and so forth. Now that's a little bit out of order, what I'm used to, so it takes just a little bit of learning curve here. Now one thing I like with the proximity key is pretty much keep it in your pocket, find the unlock, it's going to pop right up. Now what you're going to find is plenty of room back here, around just over 15 cubic feet, and really cavernous. Now it's going to have a big opening up top, but really once you dive in here, it's going to have a lot of access towards the back, nice and carpeted, and a lot of elevation through here. Under any cargo floor, one thing you want to see is, well, what's underneath there. Now, first thing you're going to find is, of course, the carpet, the padding, and another surface here, and there's a little storage area for your jacks and all the stuff that go with changing the tire. Once you're inside the Altima, this is where that mid-size segment feels, well, a lot larger. Now, what you're going to look at is legroom numbers. That's where it really feels the biggest. Now, what you got is about 45 inches of legroom up here, way above the standard. A lot of vehicles really only delivering about 40 inches up here. Now, what you have in the back, around about 36. Now, what that means is on an average human up here, you're actually going to move this seat forward, granting about 2 or 3 more inches in the back. That means it's going to be about equal all the way around. With the smart key system, first thing you'll notice is the start stop button here for the ignition, to be expected. Now at the center of the dash on any vehicle, you really want to see the entertainment. What it starts with is a modest screen, touch screen of course, with the navigations on the side. Now what I typically like is for there to be a home screen. They really don't have that here. The navigation otherwise is over here. Good volume control and tune select over here. Now below it, on this particular model, we do have dual zones, and I like the fact that we have the digital readout, easy modes all the way around, and good temperature select, nice and big. A lot of vehicles are going to go with a metallic brush kind of accents. Instead here, they combine it with a lighter wood tone. That really goes nicely with the lighter leather. Now through the center console here, dual cup holders, and you do have the heated seats here, high and low. And I like the fact that you actually can leave them on. So anytime you crank this vehicle remotely, your heated seats are going to come on naturally. Now way up here is a nice little niche. That's where you can put some items, specifically your phone for maybe charging or whatever. And you can hook up via the USB, auxiliary jack, and there is a power outlet up here. For elbow support, I found that this area right here was quite nice and elevated, just enough room for both front occupants. Now it is a 2-tier system under here. Pretty much pull the first lever, it's going to give you that upper level here. Pull it again, it's going to give you a second deeper area. Now what you're going to notice here is there is no USB connection like you'll find on some vehicles, but instead really just the power supply. For the gauge, you're going to find a standard analog tach and speedometer with a little bit of a digital readout in between. Now that digital readout gave you a lot of information that you needed, maybe the entertainment, what the car is doing, some other information. Now one thing it didn't give me was a digital readout for my speed. Instead, I had to refer specifically to the analog speedometer, which really only went in increments of 5, which made it kind of hard to fine tune my speed unless I truly stuck with the cruise control, which then of course it gave me exact readout. This vehicle had radar-like safety at the front, pretty much meaning you had collision alert. Anything got in front of you, it's going to warn you. Now, even better, that coupled with the adaptive cruise control, pretty much set the cruise even in traffic. It's going to give you space between the vehicles. As vehicles get out of the way, it's going to go up to the speed you set. Very nice in heavy traffic. With the keyless remote, you can remote access start this vehicle. Even better, it has a heated steering wheel. Now in cold situations, that's automatically going to come on, making the steering nice and warm. Now this vehicle had blind spot awareness. Now instead of the illuminator being on the mirror, like on a lot of vehicles, instead it's found on the inner portion of the door. Now I found this to be a little bit easier to see, especially in your peripheral. As the vehicle approached your blind spot, that little orange illuminator would pop on, made it so much simpler. Now back here, you're going to have tons of leg room, around about 36 inches. Now again, it's going to go up a little bit as these front seats move forward. Now even better, the back of the front seats are curved just a hair, giving those knees a little bit more breathing room. Now, as for comfort, this had leather all the way around, and what I found was the leather was very pillow-like, very cushiony, and back here, it is a somewhat of a bench style, but each area had its own kind of niche. Now, what I do like is a center console back here. Now, it folds down, but what you're gonna notice is it's not really elevated. But what I did notice is the back bench is angled just a hair, meaning when this comes out, it is almost at the perfect height. Now, it does have dual cup holders, but no storage. That does it for this edition Road Warrior test drive behind the wheel of the 2016 Nissan Altima. Now, we took this on quite a long journey and really got to know this vehicle, and the things that truly shine was the safety features on the inside, the fact that this vehicle is truly on the bigger size when it comes to mid-size vehicles, and heck, that great leg room on the inside. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.